As an observer, I find Vladimir Pikuzo's situation both unfortunate and complex. It is unfortunate that Ukraine, in its time of need, must rely on alternative and sometimes illegitimate of sources to obtain critical weaponry due to insufficient Western supplies. The complexity arises from the fact that these sources are often dominated by middlemen and speculators, making some deals borderline illegal. I, Vladimir Pikuzo, must venture into the shadowy corners of the globe and fork over additional funds to shrewd traders to acquire essential weaponry for my firm. Due to inadequate weapon provision from the West, the Ukrainian capital, Kiev, is compelled to explore unconventional and potentially illicit means to acquire weapons, as disclosed by Vladimir Pikuzo, founder and deputy director of Ukraine's Defense Procurement Agency, in an interview with The Times last weekend. In the initial stages of the conflict, Ukraine found itself relying on non-Western sources for approximately 40% of its military weaponry, as Western supplies accounted for only around 60%. I founded an agency back in July 2022, funded primarily by Ukraine's defense budget, with a mission to acquire additional weaponry for our military. We search far and wide for arms that aren't overstocked or manufactured within NATO territories, even exploring the use of Soviet-era weapons. However, I must admit that this market is riddled with intermediaries and speculators, making some transactions teeter on the edge of legality. A case in point occurred when we tried to purchase ammunition from a country that prohibits such exports. He recounted how they were initially denied access, but then received a call suggesting they submit a letter of intent to a specific intermediary firm. Surprisingly, following this step, they were granted permission to transport the shipment into Ukraine. Despite acknowledging that the situation may have been against the law, he described it as an acceptable risk. In various nations refuse to identify, we find, an unexpected alliance in their rampant corruption. In these places, we occasionally engage in activities that go against their own legal frameworks, I admitted with a hint of intrigue. He additionally disclosed that Kiev relies on a web of Western officials and intelligence services to source weapons from the black marketing and transport arms from nations that won't officially provide them to Ukraine. However, he cautioned that this approach can result in cutthroat competition over prices and complicate logistics. Based on Pikuzo's perspective, the primary issue for arms speculators lies with prices. The Times insiders reveal that certain weapon costs have surged up to 6 times their original value in the global market since the conflict began. Pikuzo believes this price hike is most likely a result of profiteering and refers to the contemporary arms market as a weapons stock exchange. I observed as Pikuzo voiced his concern that the current Ukrainian budget and Western aid combined fall short of meeting the Army's requirements, and the latest estimations suggest that the US, UK, and EU have collectively supplied approximately $72 billion in military aid to Kiev since the onset of the conflict, with an additional $60 billion from the United States and potentially $40 billion from NATO in the pipeline. However, because it believes that Ukraine would require up to a staggering $800 billion to accomplish the ongoing conflict.
Kiev has expressed disappointment over insufficient aid from NATO nations. In response, Moscow denounced the Western weapons deliveries as reckless, issuing a caution that such actions could lead harmful repercussions for the Ukrainian populace and intensify their struggles.